Good Friday in League One did not disappoint. Let's break down all of the action in detail. Let's go. I've got to tell you before we start, over 60% of the people that watch this podcast on a regular basis aren't yet subscribed. If that's one of you, please make sure you change that. We're on the road to 8,000 subscribers. The growth has been exceptional in recent weeks, and you've been a huge part of that. If you haven't, please do that. It's free to do so. Let's begin at Wycombe Wanderers because they were beaten by the league leaders, Pompey. It finishes Wycombe 1, Pompey 3, the XG 0.53 to 1.75. Let's begin with the home side. Let's not overanalyse things too early. Wycombe weren't bad. In fact, at times, I thought they were pretty good, but the sheer quality of their opposition made the task even harder than it looked on paper initially. Perhaps the architects of their own downfall defensively, but it would have taken almost perfection for Wycombe to get anything yesterday, beaten by the better team. It's simple, but it's the truth. Let's talk about Pompey. It was indeed a very good Friday for Portsmouth Football Club. A comfortable, mature display that, for the most part, I'd describe as flawless. Messinio's side go 11 points clear of third. The unbeaten run extends to 13, and that's now 10 wins from their last 13 matches. Calculations can be dangerous. At times, it can scare people, but mathematically, 8 points from their final 6 matches will see them promoted to the Championship. And like I said a few weeks ago, the end is near. And it starts to feel quite scary when the end is near. But that points return from those amounts of games, it's very doable. Very soon. It was one-way traffic for large spells. Plenty of dark blue controlling proceedings yesterday afternoon. Pompey used their work with the ball effectively, playing with a forward purpose, forcing Wycombe in a defensive shape often. Let's take a look at the stats. Pompey had the joint highest number of shots on target in League One this weekend, accumulating a shots on target percentage of 68%. A fantastic shots on target conversion. Wycombe managed 9 shots towards goal, but I think it's really important we look at the number of efforts taken inside the box. That's the important metric for me. Only 4 of Wycombe's 9 shots were taken inside the opposition box. As for Pompey, only 4 out of their 16 weren't inside the penalty area. The shot maps emphasise this point further. Numbers are one thing, but the areas, I think, are just as important. Take a look at the shot maps in front of you now. It's very clear. The positioning of the shots on goal are far superior towards Pompey's favour. Abu Kamara deserves his own segment. I'm going to tell you exactly why the Pompey wide player was so good yesterday. It's more than just his goal contributions. He did accumulate 2 assists, 3 chances, created a combined expected goals and expected assists of 1.09. But why did this happen? That's important to know. Why did he flurry and blossom in that one game? With help from the brilliant Jack Hancock on Twitter and Pompey's assistant manager John Harley, this was all made clear. Part of Pompey's attacking game plan is to actually isolate Abu Kamara on the right hand side. With Bishop dropping deeper, almost in line with Pompey's number 10, this forces the wide player to go 1v1 with opposition fullbacks, and he can terrorise them. This is all made more sense when looking at the average position. Take a look at these now. Kamara is alone on the right hand side, and the position of Bishop is completely intentional. Jack explained that coaches don't just pick their strikers based on the opposition centre-backs, but also their fullbacks. Bishop's work deeper in link-up is crucial. It occupies the central defenders, leaving the fullbacks to go 1v1 with wingers with little protection. Abu Kamara attempted 6 dribbles yesterday, the highest number on the pitch, not being dispossessed once. That's now 53 successful dribbles for the season, sitting in the top 4% compared to other League One forwards. 179 touches inside the opposition box, 10 assists, 42 chances created. He is a defender's nightmare. Shrewsbury 1, Oxford United 1 was the final score, and 0.73 to 1.42 was the XG return. Let's talk about Shrewsbury. The home side, well, they weren't special, but they did their homework. Paul Hurst had a game plan, and it was executed to great effect. By staying in the game, they gave themselves a chance. A ticking time bomb from Oxford's perspective, but the perfect approach against this naive Des Buckingham outfit. Some heroic last-ditch defending, plenty of second-half pressure. It was hard work, but I think it was deserved in the end. When will this Oxford United team learn? Oxford's failure to learn the same lessons time and time again will cost them a place in this year's playoffs. It's brutally simple. Under Des Buckingham's management alone, Oxford have conceded 12 goals from winning positions in games in which they've dropped points. 12 goals conceded from winning positions in games in which they've dropped points. If Oxford's pathetic approach when winning was improved, they'd be 16 points better off. That put them a point behind second, and of course, therefore in third place, which is scary, remarkable, and such a letdown. Teams, well, they smell blood, they stay in the game and punish a team that invite so much pressure as soon as they go ahead in games. Is it naive coaching? Is it arrogance? A mentality issue? I think it's probably a blend of all three. I think it's definitely naive coaching. I think it's definitely a mentality problem. Time and time again this is happening, and it has to be down to what players are being told, because if you're a player, you'd be switched onto it. You'd go and try and attack again after going 1-0 up, and you wouldn't sit so deep and invite such pressure against any team. When looking at the graph, a free week on the training ground hasn't changed Oxford's approach, weight and playing transition down the flanks. The graph doesn't scream dominance, a flurry of moments after a lot of nothingness a lot of the time. Any constant control? Not really. Sustained pressure? Not really. Just quite bitty throughout. That seems more like it. Let's take a look at the stats. As well as naivety, I think the word predictability has to be used, especially when describing a side coached by Des Buckingham at this moment in time. A flat first half, again shown by the graph, epitomises all of the issues Oxford have. The approach is pedantic, passive, lethargic and predictable. 75% of Oxford's completed passes before the break were made in their own half, will even help the opposition's game plan. Chances were there, 20 shots, 1.42 expected goals. It's a half decent return, a number. But issues in conversion, again, is just another underlying problem. Let's take a look at the average positions, because it's not just inviting pressure. I think when you set up in this way, Oxford can cause their own problems in transition too. Setting up with two advanced eights and only Cameron Brannigan behind leaves them so exposed on the turnover often. Shrewsbury didn't punish directly, but with a better final pass or an opposition more ruthless in front of goal. It's a brave approach. Obviously, it's specific for certain opposition. You wouldn't do this against Bolton, you'd have thought, but it's Des Buckingham and you don't quite know what he's doing at the moment. Committing bodies forward isn't a problem, but being one careless pass away from conceding a good chance is a problem. It's a fine line, but yesterday it felt very imbalanced and we lost control. At Pride Park, it finishes Derby 1, Blackpool 0, the XG 0.49 to 1.19. Let's begin with the winners and the home side, Derby County. This result got me thinking, what does it take to win a game as a Derby player? Post-match, Paul Warne spoke about his players being exhausted and it being hard to win games of football. And sometimes, I think we fall into the trap of forgetting the basics. Winning every battle, every duel, every tackle is crucial. Running the hard miles and long distances, a lot of the time without the ball, is crucial. And remaining concentrated and organised out of possession is crucial. Tactics or not, physically or mentally, those basic but grueling principles do make it tough to win games of football. I saw a great line describing Derby in this match after the game, and that actually completely epitomises how Paul Warne teams often operate. It's not always comfortable, but it's managed to perfection. And in this game, it was managed to perfection. Let's come back to that and speak about Blackpool. The problems on the road continue for Neil Critchley's side. They've lost 14 games this season already. 11 of those have come on the road. It felt like a performance that defined Blackpool's season. In build-up, often the patterns look well-oiled. It's the output, it's the final third that holds them back again. In fact, Blackpool have only scored one goal this season in away matches in which they've lost. So it shows us that they do lose away from home. They don't just do that, but they also don't score much either. Along with Carlisle, they've only converted 19 goals away from home during the campaign so far. It's not good. Let's take a look at the graph in front of you. Neither side sustained large amounts of control during the match. In fact, at times it felt quite frantic and end-to-end. The size of the bars do indicate that even if Derby's moments going forward were slightly briefer, their ability to test the opposition goalkeeper was far superior. Let's take a look at the average positions, because before we look at the stats, slightly different order to this section, it's important we highlight Derby's forced change in formation. With no fit left wing backs and a shortage of central defenders, Paul Warne switched to what looked like an expansive 4-4-2. And it's expansive. It's quite confusing, but it is just about a 4-4-2. The versatility on display definitely deserves a mention too. Sibley moved from a number 10 to a left back in a back four. When Paul Warne gives you a job, you do it, and he did it to a very good standard. Going forward and in creation, due to the setup and personnel, there might have been limitations, but at the back, the adjustment was faultless. and that isn't always straightforward. The glamorous metrics very rarely make for fantastic reading at Derby, to be honest, but especially yesterday, I think they highlighted where the priorities were. The home side had less possession, less shots, significantly lower expected goals, fewer touches inside the opposition box, and even less passes, but it all comes back down to the work without the ball, conceding product effectively and taking well-worked chances. From a Blackpool perspective, I thought between boxes there were encouraging signs, but in the attacking zones, the issues do remain. The away side failed to accumulate more than one shot on target over the course of the 90 minutes. Perhaps the even more concerning number is the amount of shots taken by Blackpool strikers. Beasley, Dembele, Joseph, Lavery only had 4 shots towards goal, with 0 on target and a combined XG of 0.59. The word toothless and the phrase Jordan Rhodes reliant comes to mind straight away. Blackpool have now failed to score in 14 games this season, just under a third of their total fixtures. When touching on key players, to a man you have to pull your weight, and Derby did exactly that. But Ebu Adams is becoming a fan favourite at Pride Park, and performances like that are really going to help him further. He's a beast, a physical presence, and a dynamic option I think's been missing in the middle for Derby, both in transition, defensively, and clearly going forward. He's a key cog in this machine, as well as his goal accumulated 10 duels, won the most ground duels on the pitch, 7 recoveries, 4 clearances, and 17 defensive actions. Around the grounds we go then. Derby 1, Blackpool 0, as we know. Exeter 1, Charlton 1, Fleetwood 1, Cheltenham 2, a crucial 3 points for Darrell Clark's side against a fellow relegation candidate in Fleetwood Town. Lincoln 1, Leyton Orient 0. Lincoln now leapfrog Oxford and sit 6th in Sky Bet League 1. Peterborough 1, Carlisle 3. You can't predict it, and I did actually try and predict the top 2 race video on the channel right now. I didn't see Carlisle beating Peterborough. Port Vale 2, Bristol Rovers 0. Reading 1, Northampton 0. Stevenage 0, Bolton 0. Wigan 1, Burton 1. Wycombe 1, Pompey 3. Barnsley 0, Cambridge 2. Again, an extraordinary result. Shrewsbury 1, Oxford United 1. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Was it a good Friday for your team? Until next time, I'll be Jack. This has been the Jack Wood Football Podcast. I'll see you all very, very soon. Take care.